Welcome to my second year FMP presentation. Before starting the course, I had little to no experience with most things music related. I had done a 2-year GCSE course on music, so I knew minimal amounts about recording and mixing, but I didn't know any microphone names or where to even start with the mixing desk. Little songwriting skills, as I had never performed or collaborated musically, and no clue how to make a research post or write an essay. During the course, I learned how to use a software called Logic, which was new to me as I had used Ignite in GCSE. I learned how to produce an album using the SAE mixing desk, how to perform live using my own music, how to write essays and research, future careers in music, which seemed impossible to me, and I've improved my people skills and communication. In my first year of this music course, I had many projects, but the ones that stood out to me the most are these. Library music, which is a short piece of music that you can sell most likely to films. Our task was to make an exactly 3-minute clip in any genre. I chose melancholy. It had to be exactly 3 minutes because if you're selling someone 3 minutes of music, it can't be any more or any less. Another thing we had to incorporate were random objects, and I'd never used this before, so it intrigued me. I decided to make a beat out of about 12 different objects. I enjoyed this project a lot because I got to use my creative side, finding something that didn't normally mean anything and turn it into something musical. Some of the examples of the tracks that I used are on the screen. Metal Plop, which is the only way I could describe the sound, and Horse Feet, which I believe were metal clunking against some wood. And I clipped it all together and I made a beat, which I'll play for you in a second. And then I played guitar over it, and I put some harmonies in there and created what I thought felt quite melancholy. Here are some clips of the library music. The second one is called The Roots of Rap, where I had to create 3 pieces of music in different genres. These are my 3 choices of genre, which are pop, hip-hop, and blues. I really enjoyed this project because it was the first time I tried anything to do with blues, and I found out that I really enjoyed it. This was also the first time I'd ever collaborated with another artist, and we were both quite proud of the results, so here is that. And the final one is a documentary, which could have been about anything musically, and I chose ABBA because I figured there would be so much to talk about as they had so many accomplishments. For example, winning the first Swedish Eurovision, the ABBA Voyage, and Mamma Mia, all of which are mentioned in the documentary and more. The software I used to create my documentary was Adobe. For my first year FMP, I had heard of a band called Forever Nowhere that had formed in the year below me, so I thought it would be a good idea to reach out to them and ask if they wanted me, as a part of our collaborated FMP, to record their album for them. And they said yes, so we met up and we had so many ideas. We wanted to record an entire album, 12 songs. They only had 6 at the time. We wanted to make t-shirts, do vinyls, make CDs, make music videos, and as you can probably tell, we were very in over our heads. And though we did as much pre-production as possible, the ambition ended up catching up to us and we were not able to check all of our boxes. After extended recording time, we did finish the album recordings, and I mixed and mastered them for their FMP. Sam redid the mixing for Spotify as he had more experience than me with that stuff, but we did end up finishing the album and the mixing on time for our FMP, and we're all very proud of it. Since the release, Forever Nowhere is now on all platforms, and we're at nearly 1,000 streams on Feels Like Home, which has become a crowd favourite, so I will play a snippet of that now. As you can imagine, there were many flaws in our FMP. Our tutors actually told us that we were the first group that had decided to do something so ambitious, and normally they wouldn't let us do a project so big, but they thought that they would give us a chance. And some things that we all picked up on that we need to do differently this year is time. We only gave ourselves a week to record, a week to mix, and we were talking about merch like CDs and t-shirts, music videos. It was way too much, and going forward we will give ourselves a lot more time, possibly less songs to record, and merch and anything that comes later is a second. The first will always be the recording of the album. A second thing that brought morale down, I thought was the amount of people in the rooms, because we were recording for a week straight, which ended up being a week and a half. And because we were always in the studios, we were either in the recording studio or in the control room, no one really had any breaks, even when we weren't needed in the studio. And because of that constant, all of the days blended into one, and it definitely brought morale down and it made stress higher. So that's something to take into account as well. Everyone always needs space when needed. And the documentation process. I was quite on top of my WordPress and all of the write-ups beforehand, but as soon as we got in the studio, everyone got quite carried away and we forgot that we need to document what we're doing. So what I'm going to do this time round is, after every day of recording, I'm going to dismiss the band, and do a write-up of that day. And another thing with the documentation process is I ended up only talking about stuff we did that day, and I didn't focus in on what actually matters, and I didn't use technical language. So this year I'm going to use AI to generate me some questions that I can answer, that keep me on track instead of just going on a ramble, because that's what I ended up doing last year. Reflecting back on my FMP last year, I realised some things that I need to work on, and they are time management, reflections, equipment knowledge, studio management and morale, and experimentation and rehearsal time. The reasons are underneath in the chart, and feel free to read those. I achieved a pass grade from this project.
I'm not sure what to say to you. You're someone I really take to. You come across as so carefree. You make me feel like I'm nobody.
We kicked off this year with a fake FMP, which was the Wall project, and it's basically a small FMP that doesn't count to your final grade, that just prepares you for the final project. And so the task was to write a song about anything to do with the war, and I chose the soldiers and their feelings. On the left here, there's a massive paragraph that says about. That is describing the song. Feel free to read that. I'm just going to summarize it. And basically the song started off, I wrote it in chronological order. So it started off with a little boy kind of taking his home for granted and being excited to go to war, being excited to fight for his country. And then eventually the regret sets in and he realises what position he's put himself in and how much he misses home, and he longs the way that it used to be. And that is the majority of the song, just longing and wishing and waiting for the war to end. And then I finished it with acceptance and just kind of realising that he knows that he's in war either way, and wishing to be home is just going to make it even longer. So he just basically puts his head down and does what he needs to do until he can go home, because longing isn't going to do anything, fighting is going to finish the war. And with the theory side of it, I asked two people from the band, Josh and Sam, and they helped me out with my recording process. And what we did for the recording process is Sam was on drums in the studio. Josh was also in the studio, but his amp was in a little hallway in between the studio and the control room. So there wouldn't be much bleed through, but Josh could stay in time with Sam. And I was in the control room with a guitar with Sam in my headphones so I could keep in time to his drumming. And that was the setup, just because I thought that would be the easiest way with mixing afterwards, because if we were all in the same room, it would all bleed into one, and that would have just been way too much. When doing some secondary research for this project, I invited my gran over and I recorded her telling me all about her appearances and her experience of the wall. And as a result of that, they did some digging and they found some images of her dad in the wall. So my grampy. So that's that. After feedback from my tutor of the World War II project, I was told to use less waffle in write-ups. I need to make sure that I'm only writing technical language and informed relevant sources. I need to think deeper about what sites I'm using and why the authors are more robust. For example, why will I be using Sound on Sound instead of Wikipedia? And also to allow time to document the process, so practical work doesn't let me forget what to write about. I achieved a merit grade for this project. Lately I've been thinking about my future after college, and I took action to that by applying to a BBC apprenticeship for live music. I got into the second round, where firstly I had to submit my CV and a personal statement, to which they said I'm through to the next round, and I had to do an online assessment, but unfortunately I didn't get through that one. I did get some feedback and they told me that I was creative and collaborative. Though I am disappointed that BBC didn't work out, I do have Autograph, which is a sound production company for theatres all around London. And I had a week of work experience with them last year, and they liked me, so they sent an email to Nick saying that I performed very well, and they would like me to come back for paid work in the summer, which I did. I worked the whole summer, and when I left, they told me that I've made my mark and I'm welcome back whenever. So I plan to use that this Easter and work for the first half of my Easter holidays to make sure that connection is still there. And if I need to, I will go back to Autograph after college. And lastly, this year, someone named Barney came around and he gave us a presentation on what he does and the way that he's excelled in the music industry. At a place called Triplex, and they do the same sort of thing that Autograph does. So I've sent him an email, and hopefully that can turn into some work experience, which could, following on, turn into work. This year, my aim for my FMP is to record an EP. Again, with Forever Nowhere, we've taken in what we did wrong last year and we're flipping it around. So we're doing an EP, which is a small album of about 4 or 5 songs, and we have 2 weeks to record it. So basically, we're halving the song we did last year and doubling the time we had. The main difference this year is that I will not be mixing. My main job is to engineer and manage and produce the album, but I will not be doing as much post-production, as I discovered last year that wasn't the route that I wanted to take, and though I'm grateful that I tried it, it's not for me. Secondary research for this year's FMP. Some of what I have to research includes musical influences, drums, vocals, bass, guitar, psychology, and the role of a producer. First of all, I have to individually research every single instrument that will be played, so drums, bass, guitar, vocals, to make sure I know what mics to use, I know how to set it up, I know what will work, what won't work. So for example, when researching the drums, I researched 2 different techniques called the Glenn Johns technique and the space pair, and I believe I'm going to go with the space pair technique this year because it seems more straightforward to me and it's what I've worked with in the past. I've also looked into preamps because last time I mic'd at the drums, it was too quiet and I couldn't figure out why. So my tutor told me to look into them, and that seems like a simple way to fix that. I've also looked into my influences and I chose female producers because there aren't many, and I think that's important to bring light to. Going further into a producer, I looked into the role of a producer, which there are so many more than I thought there would be. But I decided that I would be more of an engineer because I'll be setting up the studio. I'll be behind the mixing desk. I'm going to be researching what mics to use, why I should be using them, and that's more of an engineer's job, and that fits my place in this project. Following on to my secondary research, here are some snippets of my research plan. Just to simplify, they all talk about how I will conduct my research and why I'm doing so. Primary research for this project, I like to visualise in a triangle. As you can see on this slide, I have secondary research, primary research, and then the action that I'm going to take, and this step by step triangulates my research and keeps me in the grading matrix. Another secondary research component is my focus group, which is Nick Osborne, Samuel Boys, and Mark Robinson. I have 2 tutors and 1 member of the band who have all helped me in separate ways and will be able to help me through this project if I can't figure anything else out. Here are some theoretical and practical problems side by side and how I would problem solve them. This is how I will plan and produce this EP. Here is a snippet of one of the demos that will be on the EP.
Drifting further every day. There's too much in my brain. I can't take all this strain. Is it worth it anymore? With blood all on the floor, can't open the shut door. Oh.
Practical skills. Here are some practical skills I'll be using throughout the project: recording, songwriting, guitar playing, vocals, mixing, and collaborating. Evaluation and reflection. My focus group will bring in new perspectives and help clear my head when I'm stuck or lost. My skills audit will help me reflect on the improvements I've made to my skills since the beginning of the year, and my 500-word evaluation will round off the project and sum up my whole process. Thank you for watching.